Police Garlight, the first clue. When Officer Renee Delgado arrived at the scene, she immediately noticed the Ford Ranger hadn't moved all day. Neighbors were whispering, speculating. "It's the Langfords," one murmured. "They threatened him last month, you know," another added. "They said if he sighted them again, they'd make sure he never came back." The Langfords weren't home, and their Ring camera, which was usually pointed toward the street, had mysteriously gone offline. There were no signs of a break-in, no body, and no known motive, at least none serious enough to kill a man. But what no one realized yet, not even Officer Delgado, was that across the street, nestled quietly at 2116 Hawthorne Loop, a camera was watching. A doorbell come. Brain the Langford's grudge. Tom Langford was a former Army sergeant turned HVAC contractor, known for his short temper and long grudges. Cynthia had a smile like a country club cocktail party, but the venom behind her eyes was unmistakable. They didn't just dislike Howard, they loathed him. In the HOA's public meeting a month earlier, Cynthia had shouted across the room, "If you come on our property again, Howard, don't expect to walk off it." Everyone had laughed nervously. No one had taken it seriously. Until now. Detective, the interrogation. That night, detectives brought the Langfords in for questioning. Tom looked agitated but calm. Cynthia, on the other hand, was shaking, whether from fear or something else, no one could tell. "We didn't see him," Tom said. "We left early for Prescott. Spent the day antique shopping. You can check the receipts. Your doorbell cam was offline." "Yeah, it's been acting up. Power surge or something." Cynthia tried to smile. "I always hated that thing. It made our house feel like a prison." Detective Monica Ross leaned back. She didn't believe a word. But without a body, there was no case. No proof. No weapon. Just a missing man and a lot of angry neighbors. Still, something gnawed at her. Something wasn't right. The camera across the street. 3 days later, the case was stalling. Leads were dead. The HOA board was panicking, especially when news helicopters began circling overhead. That's when Officer Delgado had a thought. Check the neighbors' security cams. And there it was. At 2116 Hawthorne Loop, an elderly widow named Jeanette Mulligan had a Ring doorbell cam, one of the newer models with a wide-angle view and HD clarity. She hadn't even realized it was recording. Her son had installed it months ago just in case. When detectives reviewed the footage, their jaws dropped. Video camera, the grainy truth. 8:13 a.m. Howard Bell steps onto the Langford's porch, rings the bell, waits. 8:14 a.m. Cynthia opens the door. There's a brief exchange. She gestures angrily. Howard shakes his head. 8:15 a.m. Tom appears. The camera doesn't capture audio clearly, but Tom is pointing toward the side of the house. 8:16 a.m. Howard steps forward. Cynthia steps aside. The door closes. 8:17 a.m. Silence. 8:30 a.m. Nothing. No movement. No exit. Howard Bell never walks out. The video ends with the door shutting behind him, and nothing more. But that was all they needed. The Ring footage from Jeanette Mulligan's doorbell cam changed everything. It wasn't just grainy surveillance. It was a silent witness to a crime, the first real break in a case that had stalled hard. Detectives Monica Ross and Renee Delgado stared at the paused frame on the department monitor. Howard Bell stepping inside the Langford's house and never stepping back out. "He didn't leave through the front," Ross said slowly. "But that doesn't mean he didn't leave at all." "Not alive," Delgado replied. "They pulled warrants immediately." The search begins. The next morning, 6 marked cars rolled on a Hawthorne Loop. The neighborhood buzzed like a beehive. Everyone peeked from behind blinds, holding coffee mugs and phones, texting each other frantically. The Langfords had just returned home the night before. They stood on their porch in confusion, or rather, pretended to. Tom crossed his arms. "What's this about now?" "You know damn well," Ross replied, holding up the warrant. "We're searching your home, your property, and your vehicles. Cooperate, or it gets worse." Cynthia burst into tears on cue. "This is harassment. We've done nothing wrong." But the act crumbled quickly. Broom the garage. The first thing they noticed in the garage was the bleach, a lot of it. 2 industrial-sized bottles, recently used. The scent was unmistakable. Fresh. Chemical. Then came the tarp, folded behind a water heater. Not suspicious in itself, but it reeked of cleaning fluid and something more metallic, something organic. Detectives opened the Langford's outdoor trash bins. Inside one of the black contractor bags, a blood-stained rag, a cracked iPhone with the HOA's inspection app still open. And worse, part of a broken GoPro strap, identical to the kind Howard Bell always wore. Magnifying glass still to the left, backyard unearthed. The Langfords had a modest backyard with desert landscaping, crushed granite, a few succulents, and one oddly raised flower bed near the corner. That raised bed wasn't there the week before. Officer Delgado remembered noting it when she first canvassed the property. A cadaver dog sniffed the bed, barked, then went nuts. By the time forensics began digging, the air was so tense that even the birds seemed silent. Cynthia was sitting on the curb in cuffs, sobbing. Tom just stared, his jaw clenched so tight it looked like it might crack. At 3 feet deep, they hit something, a boot, still on a foot, still attached to Howard Bell. Page facing up, the Langford's motive. Detective Ross sat across from Tom in the interrogation room that night. She dropped a manila folder on the table. Photos spilled out, the boot, the trash bag, the garage bleach, and finally, the ring cam footage. "You want to explain this?" Tom looked at the pictures and said nothing for a moment. Then, he leaned forward, voice low and sharp. He wouldn't stop. "Excuse me." He was citing us for everything. Everything. Fines we couldn't afford. Letters, threats, liens. He told us if we didn't repaint the shutters by Friday, we'd be in default. I've got PTSD, 2 kids in college, and a leaking roof. And this little clipboard tyrant thought he could ruin us over a ****ing gnome. "You killed him over a gnome?" "No," Tom said coldly. "I killed him because he pushed and laughed in our faces. Like we were nothing. Like our home wasn't ours anymore." Brain's Cynthia's version. In the next room, Cynthia was cracking. "I didn't want it to happen. I swear to God." Tom snapped. He just snapped. "What did he use?" Delgado asked. She whimpered. "A shovel. He was supposed to just scare him. He had the shovel because we were redoing the backyard." But then they started yelling, and Howard stepped forward, and Tom... She buried her face in her hands. "I helped him clean it up. I was scared. I didn't know what else to do." Receipt, the paper trail. It turned out Howard Bell had been overly aggressive, perhaps even illegally so. Records showed that he'd issued 16 fines to the Langfords in the past 90 days, including $100 for a wind chime, $75 for weeds that weren't there, $150 for improper curtain visibility. He was acting beyond his scope. Residents had filed multiple complaints, but the HOA board, afraid of looking soft, ignored it. They turned a blind eye, and now a man was dead. Firecracker, the fallout. News spread fast. HOA inspector found dead in resident's backyard became a national headline. News trucks rolled in. HOA board members scrambled, denying responsibility. Even as emails surfaced showing Howard had been warned multiple times to dial it back. The HOA president, Evelyn Ducharme, resigned within a week. A civil lawsuit followed. The Langfords were charged with second-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and obstruction. They both pleaded not guilty. But they had forgotten the one thing they couldn't bury: the doorbell cam. The courtroom was packed. Cameras flashed as Tom and Cynthia Langford entered in orange jumpsuits, shackled at the ankles, faces pale and drawn. The media had dubbed them the HOA killers. But inside Cypress Ridge, the reaction wasn't so black and white. Some whispered they had gone too far. Others whispered something far more dangerous. It could have been any of us. Balance scale the charges. The Maricopa County District Attorney filed second-degree murder against Tom Langford, accessory to murder, tampering with evidence, and obstruction against Cynthia Langford. But this wasn't just about a single murder anymore. This trial was about power, pressure, and control, and how a homeowners association helped fuel a killing. Prosecutor Jamie Rollins didn't hold back in his opening statement. This isn't about landscaping or noise complaints. This is about two people who decided that a man enforcing rules deserved to die, and who tried to hide his body like it was trash. They thought they could bury justice, but they forgot about the camera. Movie camera, the Ring cam evidence. The jury was silent as the Ring cam footage played. Howard Bell stepping onto the porch. Cynthia opening the door. Tom pointing toward the side of the house. Howard stepping inside. The door closing. And then nothing. Greater than 15 seconds that changed everything. Jamie Rollins turned to the jury. That was the last time anyone saw Howard Bell alive. And that was all the Langfords needed. 15 seconds to turn from residents into killers. Woman judged the defense strategy. Tom's attorney, Marcus Weller, took a different tack. This was not premeditated. This was not murder. It was a confrontation that spiraled out of control because the HOA, and specifically Mr. Bell, harassed and threatened the Langfords for months. The board ignored every plea for help. My client didn't plan this. He snapped. That's not murder. It's manslaughter. But the evidence was stacked. The bleach, the tarp, the buried body, the trash bags, Cynthia's confession. It was a cleanup that could only mean one thing. They knew it was wrong, and they tried to hide it. Fire the community divided. Cypress Ridge wasn't the same anymore. HOA meetings were canceled indefinitely. Residents filed a petition to dissolve the board. Protesters stood at the gates with signs reading, "We're not criminals, we're homeowners. HOA equals harassment on arrival. Justice for Howard." But change the system. Many blamed the Langfords, but many more blamed the HOA itself. A local news report found that 35% of residents had received what they believed were excessive or fabricated citations in the past year. Howard Bell had been overzealous, vindictive, and even empowered by a board that wanted obedience over peace. Open file folder, the secret files. In a surprise twist mid-trial, the prosecution revealed internal HOA emails leaked by a disgruntled board member who resigned after the murder. The emails revealed Howard Bell was paid per violation reported, incentivizing aggressive enforcement. The board president had personally approved a lien on the Langfords' home over $1,200 in fines, including citations later proven false. Multiple complaints about Howard have been ignored or deleted. The courtroom buzzed. Even the judge looked stunned. And the jury? They weren't just judging the Langfords anymore. They were judging an entire system. Calendar day 15. Cynthia breaks down. Cynthia took the stand in her own defense. Her voice trembled as she described the day of the murder. "I was angry. Yes, but I didn't know Tom would do it. I opened the door. I watched them argue. And when he swung the shovel, I froze. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I froze. And after that, we just cleaned, like robots. I didn't want to go to jail. I just wanted it to disappear." Rollins stared at her. "Did you call 911? No. Did you try to help Howard? No. Because you weren't in shock. You were covering your tracks." Her tears didn't sway the jury. Scroll verdict day. On a humid Thursday morning, the jury filed back into the room. The court clerk read the verdict aloud. Tom Langford, guilty of second-degree murder. Cynthia Langford, guilty of accessory to murder and tampering with evidence. Gasps echoed through the room. Cynthia collapsed into her chair, sobbing uncontrollably. Tom just stared forward, eyes glassy, as if he had seen this moment 1,000 times already. The judge delivered the sentence. Tom Langford, 25 years to life. Cynthia Langford, 12 years, with possibility of parole after 7. Justice, it seemed, had been served, but the damage was far from over. Brain the deeper question. Later that night, Detective Ross walked through Cypress Ridge one last time. Everything looked perfect again. The hedges trimmed, the sidewalks swept, the houses calm. But she knew what lay beneath. A homeowners association had created pressure. That pressure became rage. That rage became murder. All because no one wanted to lose control of a neighborhood. And in the end, a doorbell cam had exposed the truth. Not just about the killers, but about all of them. 6 months had passed since the verdict, but Cypress Ridge hadn't healed. The lawns were still perfectly mowed. The fountains still gurgled at the entrance gate. But beneath the postcard perfection, the community had been split wide open, and some wounds refused to close. Newspaper, the media frenzy. The Langford trial became a national conversation. Major networks aired specials like Murder in the HOA, What Went Wrong in Suburbia, The Cost of Compliance, When Neighborhood Rules Become Deadly, Homeowner Justice or Justified Murder. Podcasters, YouTubers, Redditors, they all had a take. Some said Tom Langford was a monster. Others said he was a man pushed past his breaking point by an HOA run like a dictatorship. On social media, the story was viral. Imagine paying $400 a month just to get murdered for a gnome. HOAs were never about community. They're about control. One doorbell cam changed everything. The footage itself, the moment Howard Bell walked into the Langford home, was leaked. It sparked a firestorm. Debates erupted over whether it was ethical to post, but that didn't stop millions from watching. The comments flooded in. Brain public opinion turns. Surprisingly, public opinion didn't land squarely against the Langfords. Yes, what they did was horrific. Yes, it was murder. But more people began talking about the root cause, the unchecked power of HOAs and their agents. A viral Twitter thread read, Howard Bell wasn't just a man. He was a symbol of everything wrong with these neighborhoods. He was the guy who made you afraid to leave your trash bin out an extra 10 minutes. Who photographed your kids' chalk drawings. Who fined you for planting marigolds instead of roses. He didn't deserve to die, but we all understand how it happened. That tweet got 3.2 million likes. The HOA world would never be the same again. Classical building, the legal fallout. Under growing pressure, Cypress Ridge dissolved its HOA. Yes, the entire thing. After a community vote, with over 87% in favor, the board resigned, the bylaws were suspended, and a temporary neighborhood council was formed to handle shared responsibilities. Garbage collection, street maintenance, basic stuff. The new council wasn't allowed to issue fines. Other HOAs across the country took notice. In California, a proposed state bill sought to limit fine authority in HOAs. In Texas, a senator called for a ban on per-violation incentive programs for inspectors. In Florida, a class action lawsuit was filed against an HOA for emotional distress due to citation abuse. Howard Bell's name became a talking point in state houses. He didn't live to see it, but in death, he became the symbol of what happens when bureaucracy turns into tyranny. Speech balloon, the last interview. Months later, Dateline NBC aired a special called Buried in the Backyard, the Bell Case. They interviewed Jeanette Mulligan, the elderly neighbor whose Ring doorbell had captured the critical footage. She sat quietly in her floral chair, holding a cup of tea. The footage paused on the screen behind her. I didn't even know that thing recorded, she said. My son set it up. I thought it was just to scare porch pirates. The interviewer asked, Do you think justice was done? Jeanette stared for a long time. Justice? She finally whispered. I think something broke in this neighborhood long before Howard got hurt. We were all scared of each other, all tense. And when people feel powerless, they either shut up or they explode. She looked into the camera. He died because no one stopped the pressure from building. Not the board, not the neighbors, not even me. Derelict house aftermath in Cypress Ridge. The Langford's house sat vacant, unsold, unclaimed. No one wanted to live in the murder house. A bank foreclosure notice eventually went up on the door. Howard Bell's family filed a wrongful death suit against the HOA board, winning a $1.1 million settlement. The board's insurance paid it out quietly, but the press caught wind anyway. Several board members moved out of state. A few received death threats. Others simply stopped answering their phones. Video camera the footage that changed everything. In the final scene of the Dateline special, they showed the infamous footage one more time. Howard Bell walking up the steps. The door opening. The conversation. Him stepping inside. The door closing. The narrator spoke over it. It only took 17 seconds to disappear. But it took a neighborhood a lifetime to understand why. A final note. Howard Bell was buried in a quiet cemetery just outside of Phoenix. His headstone reads, Howard J. Bell, 1976 to 2023. Husband, father, believer in order. There were only a few attendees. His wife, his two sons, a few distant friends. No one from the HOA came. But across the street from the cemetery, a house had a Ring camera mounted by the front door. It blinked quietly in the sun, always watching.